Mexican standoff we got here.
Weapons down.
There's a saying that a hero is only as good as the villain. And to be honest, apart from guys like Optimus, the entire Transformers franchise owes its popularity to iconic characters and Megatron and an entire legion of ultra-powerful and ultra-cool Decepticons, who often steal the spotlight. These villains, with their edgy designs, destructive weapons, and fierce vehicles, have a unique cool factor. Among them, some Decepticons are the toughest Cybertronians ever, and hold no qualms when it comes to serving destruction, if not death. From the classic G1 cartoon to the epic IDW comics, their raw power is undeniable. With colossal combiners and the relentless might of Megatron leading the charge, the Decepticons continue to be the ultimate challenge for the Autobots. And in this video, we'll explore the 8 most fearsome Decepticons ever. Let's get started. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Come on, Megatron.
What anyone wants, human.
Megatron. Megatron, the leader of the Decepticons in the Transformers franchise, is the very definition of an archetypal villain who constantly faces failure, partly due to the constraints of being part of a child-oriented series. I mean, it's not his fault that his frenemies in the show wear a super strong plot armor. His role as a baddie often places him in opposition to Optimus Prime, a character seen as perpetually victorious. While his iconic status as the main antagonist is undisputed, fan opinions reveal a mix of grudging respect and apathy, with many admiring what he represents more than the character itself. Some who like Thanos compare Megatron with the Mad Titan, and even go so far as to support the points of view of these two villains. In the original G1 cartoon, Megatron was depicted as a typical Saturday morning villain. His exaggerated schemes, inability to handle his subordinate Starscream, and constant retreats made him easy to mock. However, he also carried distinct traits that elevated his stature and personality. Frank Welker's voice acting provided him with a memorable tone, and his position as a leader of half of Cybertron's population distinguished him from smaller-scale cartoon antagonists. Despite this, his plans often bordered on absurdity. Still, the G1 movie portrayed him at his peak during his climactic battle with Optimus Prime, and showed his raw strength and cunning. In fact, there were moments of levity as well, such as his drunken state in the episode Microbots. The Marvel Comics offered a different vision of this guy, though. Megatron quickly lost his role as the Decepticon leader to Shockwave and others, which allowed him to avoid much of the cartoon's silliness. When he did appear in lead roles, his character was given more weight and impact. His storyline in the UK comics, where he was presented as older and reflective, brought new dimensions to his persona. Positive new dimensions, I must note. However, later retcons, like revamping him as a clone with another mind, undid much of the good work, and in a way, his gravitas was fairly reduced. The IDW comics reinvented Megatron in a compelling way, which gave him a more nuanced backstory. Starting as a miner rebelling against societal oppression, he evolved into a tyrant consumed by hatred and ambition. The Chaos Theory storyline, written by James Roberts, depicted him as a tragic figure who began with noble intentions but was corrupted by war and power. This arc highlighted his philosophical and poetic side, which was in contrast with the ruthless warlord he eventually became. His manifesto, reminiscent of political ideals like those of Tony Benn, added layers of depth to his motivations. Other IDW storylines varied in quality. While Simon Furman initially gave him a no-nonsense attitude, efforts like Megatron Origin failed to capture the complexity of his character. Similarly, All Hail Megatron struggled with inconsistent motivations and poorly executed attempts to portray him as a master strategist. Despite these missteps, the Chaos Theory storyline solidified Megatron as a multifaceted character, capable of both ideological idealism and monstrous actions. On the other hand, the Dreamwave comics presented a simpler take on Megatron, borrowing heavily from his cartoon persona. Meanwhile, Regeneration 1 leaned into his more eccentric traits, portraying him as a deranged leader ruling a devastated Earth. This version embraced the campier aspects of his character, but provided a change of pace from the more sophisticated interpretations in other IDW stories. In Transformers '84, Megatron's obsession with defeating Optimus Prime Prime led to significant strategic missteps. His refusal to act until provoked by Prime, coupled with his general's frustration, highlighted his deteriorating sanity. These flaws culminated in his stasis lock on Earth, which allowed the Decepticon forces to fracture under new leadership. Megatron's personality is a mix of sadism, egomania, and tactical brilliance. He commands loyalty through intimidation and violence, particularly toward his treacherous second-in-command, Starscream. Despite his disdain for humanity, he occasionally spares individuals for his benefit, so one can say that he has a pragmatic side as well. Over the years, he's been depicted as everything from a campy supervillain to a complex anti-hero. At his best, Megatron transcends the typical villain archetype and offers a rather compelling cocktail of ambition, tragedy, and brutality.
I am Thunderwing. Release me immediately.
Thunderwing. As a Decepticon leader, Thunderwing is both admired and feared, and I believe in a better world he would be in charge of the Decepticon forces instead of Megatron. He has a sense of ruthless ambition, but he also has an uncharacteristic concern for his peers, which makes him pretty unique as a villain. However, his fatal flaw is obsession, which often consumes him completely. Once fixated on a goal, Thunderwing sacrifices everything, even the trust of his allies, to achieve it. This obsession transforms him from a noble leader into a deceitful and unrecognizable embodiment of pure evil. His unparalleled power, thanks to his advanced Pretender Shell and vast arsenal, ensures his frequent success, though often at huge costs. In Marvel Comics, Thunderwing's affinity for the creation matrix is kinda what defines him. As one of the few Decepticons connected to the Matrix, he rose to prominence quickly and gained leadership over the Decepticons on Cybertron. His leadership style was all about making aggressive policies, such as eliminating neutral zones and targeting Autobot resistance movements. However, his obsession with finding the Matrix drives him to extremes, and he ends up alienating his troops and compromising his leadership. After obtaining the Matrix, Thunderwing becomes consumed by its dark energy. This corruption leads to his eventual defeat when his body is destroyed and the Matrix seemingly lost. In Dreamwave's Worlds Collide storyline, Thunderwing is depicted as one of Unicron's agents, tasked with preparing a new universe for his master's arrival. Although his strength and tactical skill are evident, he ultimately perishes along with his team when Jetfire detonates a bomb, obliterating the Decepticon headquarters. In the IDW continuity, Thunderwing is portrayed as a scientist warning of Cybertron's ecological collapse. Ignored by both Autobots and Decepticons, he experiments on himself with polydermal grafting to create a symbiotic armor that enhances his strength but drives him insane. His transformation turns him into a cataclysmic force that devastates Cybertron, rendering the planet uninhabitable. Resurrected by Bludgeon using Ultra Energon, Thunderwing wreaks havoc on Nebulous and returns to Cybertron, where he's finally subdued by Optimus Prime and the combined forces of Autobots and Decepticons. And this is one of the few times that the two sides collaborated for a singular cause. Thunderwing's role continues in service to Galvatron and the dead universe. His body, reprogrammed as a Guardian, protects the Negacore on Karativaz. Despite his diminished role, his immense power prevents even Ultra Magnus and the Wreckers from overcoming him, underscoring his enduring menace.
Go anywhere. I'm Overlord.
Overlord, a humongous and uber-powerful Decepticon warrior, is one of the deadliest and most fearsome Cybertronians in the Transformers universe. And more often than not, the Autobots tremble in fear when Overlord charges into the battlefield. Created from a combination of the Gigatank and Megajet, Overlord can transform into a colossal robot, a heavily armed base, or a large jet capable of space travel. He's equipped with unparalleled weaponry, including stomach-mounted laser blasters and grenade launchers, and has the ability to prevent wounds he inflicts from healing. Additionally, he possesses an internal arms factory, which only enhances his destructive potential. In Master Force, Overlord was a high-ranking Destron allied with the energy being Devil Z, who sought to create the ultimate robot lifeforms, the Godmasters. Overlord's Transtector, the largest of the creations, was controlled by Giga and Mega, a human couple bonded to its dual components, the Gigatank and Megajet. Together, they formed Overlord and became the Ambassador of Destruction, whose only task was to defeat the Autobots. They recruited additional Godmasters named Buster and Hydra, but their failure to overpower the Autobots led Giga and Mega to intervene directly. Overlord initially overpowered the Autobot commander Jinrai, but after God Jinrai's power-up with God Bomber, Overlord was defeated during a climactic battle in space. Tensions escalated as Devil Z revealed plans to annihilate humanity, which conflicted with Giga and Mega's appreciation of their human essence. Despite their initial allegiance to Devil Z, they eventually turned against him. However, Devil Z stripped them of their bond with Overlord's Transdector, leading to their tragic deaths. The now autonomous Transdector fled into space and joined the greater Decepticon forces to become one of their prominent generals. In the IDW continuity, Overlord's origins are equally exciting. As an extremely rare 0.1%er, he had an extraordinary spark that made him immensely powerful. Initially a gladiator and rival to Megatron, Overlord developed a pathological fear of defeat, having been bested by Megatron repeatedly in combat. Despite his loyalty to the Decepticon cause, his motivations were self-centered, driven by a lust for violence and glory rather than ideological belief. Megatron selected Overlord for the elite Phase 6er program and made him nearly indestructible through Ununtrium enhancements. However, Megatron also installed safeguards, including a kill switch and a virus that prevented Overlord from harming him. Overlord resented this control and sought freedom by capturing Nemosurgeon Trepan to learn how to bypass the safeguards. Though Megatron thwarted these plans, Overlord's rebellion cemented his status as a rogue agent, culminating in his defiance of orders during the infiltration protocols. Overlord's treason placed him on the Decepticon Justice Division's list of traitors, but his unmatched strength and cunning allowed him to remain as one of the most important leaders in the Decepticon hierarchy. Overlord's combat abilities are unmatched, and he combines heavy firepower, speed, and durability. His psychological acumen makes him a master torturer who's capable of inflicting prolonged suffering with sadistic precision. Despite his brutality, he is an artist of destruction and basically relishes in the spectacle of battle. His training as a medic further emphasizes his macabre focus on pain, as he uses medical knowledge to dismantle enemies without killing them outright. Overlord's gladiatorial approach to warfare often demoralizes opponents and motivates his own troops through fear. So yeah, as both a weapon of mass destruction and a strategist, he is as dangerous on the battlefield as he is off it. Despite his loyalty to the Decepticons, his disdain for authority and desire for autonomy make him a volatile figure, feared even by his allies.
Weren't you supposed to be the best of us?
Tarn, also known as Demus and Glitch, is another piece of work that's equal parts intriguing and brutal. As the leader of the Decepticon Justice Division, or the DJD, Tarn shows immense loyalty to Megatron's ideals to an obsessive degree. Interestingly, despite his ruthless methods, he's one of the most eloquent Decepticons, which makes him a pretty lovable character. He's notorious for quoting Megatron's philosophical writings, such as "towards peace," while carrying out executions. Tarn's most terrifying ability is his outlier power to modulate his voice and cause his victims' sparks to self-destruct. His famous mask, shaped like the Decepticon insignia, is another symbol which speaks volumes about his complete devotion to the Decepticon cause. Tarn was forged as a rare 0.1%er, which granted him extraordinary strength and endurance. His outlier ability allowed him to disable machines with a touch, though it caused him pain. Before the war, Demus attended the Giaxian Academy of Advanced Technology, where he hid his powers. After defying the Senate, he was subjected to the punishment of Imperata, leaving him with a reshaped head and hands. Adopting the name Glitch, he used his powers in missions for Orion Pax, including a successful heist against Nominus Prime. However, exposure to Megatron's writings set him on a dark path. Rebuilt under Decepticon oversight, Demus took on the name Tarn and rose to prominence in Megatron's faction. Tarn's mask became a symbol of both Decepticon superiority and a tool to hide his inner turmoil. As the DJD's leader, Tarn ensured that no traitor escaped punishment. His base on Mesotine doubled as a site for his addiction to the enhancement drug Nuke, which further fueled his violent tendencies. His sadistic streak was evident in his time as Commandant of Grindcore Prison, where he manipulated prisoners and used smelting chambers to execute captives, all while drowning their screams in music. Tarn's unyielding loyalty was tested after the war ended. When Megatron defected to the Autobots, Tarn's world crumbled. Attempting suicide through a nuke overdose, he ultimately rationalized that the Decepticon cause transcended Megatron himself. Determined to restore the ideals of the Decepticons, Tarn forged alliances, including one with Deathsaurus. Together, they plotted to eliminate Megatron and his allies. Tarn's belief in Megatron's writings, even after his betrayal, highlighted his psychological fragility. His idealized vision of the Decepticon cause clashed with the reality of Megatron's shift in ideology. Tarn's eventual confrontation with Megatron is also what led to his downfall. Leading an assault against Megatron and his allies, Tarn encountered a leader who had grown more powerful and resolute. During their battle, Megatron revealed his ability to harness antimatter and used it to decimate the DJD. Tarn was the last to fall, his mask ripped away as Megatron stripped him of his identity by calling him Glitch. Tarn's bravado crumbled, and he died, realizing that his actions had ultimately been meaningless. Straxus. Straxus, also known as Lord High Governor of Darkmount, is a ruthless and deadly Decepticon dictator. From his throne in Polyhex, he enforces his absolute authority with brutality and shows no mercy even to his own followers. Straxus rules through terror, often employing his battle axe to eliminate dissent. His iron-fisted leadership is so formidable that even Megatron leaves him to control his corner of Cybertron without interference. Straxus ascended to power after the assassination of the previous Decepticon leader, Tranus, by the Wreckers. Under his rule, Polyhex became a site of horror, with its infamous smelting pools used to melt down prisoners, Autobots, neutrals, and even destitute Decepticons for raw materials. Straxus's reign of terror extended to his own inner circle, as he would physically punish subordinates like shrapnel on a whim. In 1985, Straxus initiated the construction of a space bridge to Earth, using the scientist Spanner as its core. This bridge was central to his plans to connect Cybertron to Earth for conquest. When Autobot spy Scrounge uncovered this scheme, Straxus captured and executed him in the smelting pools. Despite early setbacks with the space bridge's malfunctioning, Straxus ruthlessly pursued his goal, even threatening his engineers. Blaster, an Autobot, discovered the space bridge and engaged Straxus in battle. Though Straxus initially overwhelmed Blaster, the Autobot outwitted him by destabilizing the bridge. Straxus was flung into its malfunctioning energy arc, seemingly destroyed. However, his head was salvaged and placed in a life support pod, allowing him to maintain leadership. Straxus' ambitions soon grew, leading him to plot a body transfer with Megatron using experimental technology. Although the transfer failed, Straxus' consciousness partially merged with Megatron's, leading to internal conflict. Ultimately, Megatron's will overpowered Straxus, reducing him to a dormant state. Straxus had a contingency plan, a clone of Megatron that secretly housed his personality. This clone, initially believing itself to be the real Megatron, engaged in several battles, including confrontations with the Autobots and even Galvatron. Over time, the clone's fragmented identity allowed Straxus to attempt a resurgence. However, the clone ultimately rejected Straxus' control and committed suicide to prevent his dominance. In the UK Transformers comics, the clone played a pivotal role in Cybertron's political landscape. After the war destabilized the Decepticons, the clone returned to Cybertron, found its leadership decadent and ineffective, and usurped power through an impassioned speech. However, the clone was haunted by the memories of both Straxus and the trooper whose body had been used to create it. This mental torment ended in a final battle with the real Megatron, during which the clone chose self-destruction over allowing Straxus to take control. Galvatron. Galvatron is often depicted as a more powerful and unhinged version of Megatron, created by the planet-eating god-villain Unicron. While initially bound to Unicron's will and tasked with destroying the matrix of leadership, Galvatron soon rebels against his master and reclaims leadership of the Decepticons. His story spans different media, including cartoons, films, and comics, with varying interpretations of his identity, from an upgraded Megatron to a separate being altogether. In the 1986 Transformers film, Galvatron is introduced after the gravely injured Megatron is abandoned by Starscream. Drifting in space, Megatron encounters Unicron, who offers to rebuild him in exchange for servitude. Despite initial resistance, Megatron accepts under duress and transforms into Galvatron. With a new body, weaponry, and troops, Cyclonus, Scourge, and the Sweeps, Galvatron first returns to Cybertron to confront Starscream. Interrupting Starscream's coronation, Galvatron asserts his dominance by killing him with a single powerful shot and reclaims leadership of the Decepticons. Galvatron's mission to destroy the Matrix leads to a series of conflicts with the Autobots. After multiple failed attempts to destroy Ultra Magnus and the Matrix, Unicron punishes Galvatron with psychic torment. Galvatron eventually captures the Matrix, but attempts to use it against Unicron rather than destroy it. This defiance enrages Unicron, who transforms into his colossal robot form and begins to consume Cybertron. Galvatron fights back, but is swallowed by Unicron. Inside Unicron, Galvatron battles Hot Rod, who claims the Matrix and becomes Rodimus Prime. Rodimus defeats Galvatron, hurls him into space, and uses the Matrix to destroy Unicron. Following these events, in Season 3 of the Transformers animated series, the Decepticons retreat to Char, a desolate planet, while Cyclonus and Scourge search for Galvatron. They find him on Thrull, submerged in a plasma pool that has damaged his mental stability. This results in an increasingly erratic and violent leadership style. Despite his madness, Galvatron continues to lead the Decepticons in battles against the Autobots, though his unstable behavior often undermines his efforts. His mental state deteriorates further in the episode Web World, where an attempt at therapy on the planet Torculon ends with Galvatron destroying the planet's sentient core. In The Burden Hardest to Bear, Galvatron briefly gains the matrix of leadership but is haunted by the spirits of past Autobot leaders, leading him to discard it. Scourge briefly seizes control of the Decepticons, but is swiftly overthrown by Galvatron. During the Hate Plague storyline, Galvatron initially avoids infection and reluctantly teams up with a resurrected Optimus Prime to combat the pandemic. After becoming infected himself, Galvatron is eventually cured when Prime unleashes the Matrix's energy. This whole thing also appears to temporarily stabilize Galvatron's mental state, leading to a ceasefire between Autobots and Decepticons. In The Rebirth, Galvatron devises a plan to destroy both Earth and Cybertron using the plasma energy chamber. He uses Cybertron's propulsion system to move the planet into Earth's orbit, causing catastrophic effects. Although his plan fails, Galvatron survives and vows revenge. The storyline ends without resolution due to the cancellation of the American series. The Japanese continuation, The Headmasters, reveals Galvatron's ongoing schemes to exploit Vector Sigma's instability. He gains new allies in the form of Decepticon Headmasters, but faces repeated defeats at the hands of the Autobots. Eventually, Scorponok betrays Galvatron, planting bombs in Vector Sigma's chamber. Galvatron attempts to stop the explosion, but is caught in the blast. Presumed dead, he later reappears, reclaims leadership, and begins a plan to transform Earth into a new body for himself, Grand Galvatron. However, this plan is thwarted by the Autobot Headmasters, who exploit his weakness and entomb him in an iceberg. In the Marvel Comics, Galvatron's story takes a different turn. He's depicted as a time traveler from the future, attempting to build a weapon to destroy Unicron. This leads to conflicts with both Autobots and Decepticons in the past, creating alternate timelines. In Target 2006, Galvatron temporarily overthrows Megatron and builds a massive laser cannon, but is eventually forced to abandon his plans and return to his own time. Scorponok. Scorponok commands the headquarters in the Transformers universe. His portrayal varies across continuities. In the original Transformer series, Scorponok is the Nebulan leader Zarek, bonded to a Decepticon body. In the Japanese Headmasters series, he's a Transformer paired with a Transdector. Known for his cunning, manipulative, and power-hungry personality, Scorponok often uses strategy and psychological warfare, though his arrogance and overconfidence frequently lead to his downfall. In the Headmasters series, Scorponok incites a rebellion against Fortress and declares himself Decepticon leader after Galvatron's demise. Despite lacking the physical power of some of his subordinates, Scorponok uses manipulation and calculated tactics to maintain his authority. His cruelty is evident in his willingness to destroy planets like Cybertron and Mars, and almost annihilates Earth as well. However, his overconfidence often blinds him, as seen when Fortress thwarts his plans to destroy Earth, forcing Scorponok to retreat. In Marvel's Transformer comics, Scorponok was a rival of Fortress Maximus on Cybertron. After leading a brutal assault on an Autobot city, he follows the Autobots to Nebulos, allying with the Nebulan leader Zarek. Together, they undergo the Headmaster process, bonding to enhance their combat abilities. On Nebulos, Scorponok uses Zarek's daughter as bait to lure the Autobots into a trap, showcasing his manipulative tendencies. However, the Autobots' own Headmaster enhancements eventually force Scorponok into retreat. Scorponok's journey continues on Earth, where he confronts the Autobot headmasters. After a fierce battle, Fortress Maximus defeats him, establishing the Autobots' dominance. Scorponok also oversees the creation of Decepticon pretenders, using them to infiltrate and attack Autobots. His rivalry with Fortress Maximus remains central, culminating in battles that frequently test his leadership. Scorponok plays a significant role in the Underbase saga as well. Manipulated by Starscream, Scorponok's faction battles Ratbat's Decepticons over the legendary Underbase, only for Starscream to claim its power. Scorponok ultimately kills Ratbat and takes command of the Earthbound Decepticons, but his plans to harness the Underbase's energy are foiled by Optimus Prime. Despite setbacks, Scorponok becomes the sole leader of the Earth-based Decepticons. As Decepticon leader, Scorponok has to deal with internal challenges and external threats. He contends with rogue factions, such as Shockwaves, and forms an uneasy alliance with Optimus Prime to combat the looming threat of Unicron. During the climactic battle with Unicron, Scorponok shows courage and respect for Optimus, and charges Unicron directly when the Autobot leader is incapacitated. In a final act of defiance, Scorponok is struck down by Unicron's energy blast, dying honorably in the heat of battle. Shockwave. Shockwave is renowned for his cold, logical demeanor and striking design that has a single unblinking yellow eye and a powerful, imposing silhouette. First introduced in Marvel's Transformers comics, Shockwave quickly distinguished himself as a unique Decepticon. His unyielding logic and efficiency made him one of the strongest and most memorable villains in the Transformers universe. In the Marvel comics, Shockwave disrupts the expected narrative by overpowering the Autobots in a single strike and taking command of the Decepticons from Megatron. His leadership isn't driven by ambition or desire for power, but by the belief that his logic made him the most capable leader. Under his reign, Shockwave efficiently executes his plans, even stringing up defeated Autobots as trophies. His calculated approach contrasts starkly with Megatron's volatile demeanor, marking him as a starkly different kind of Decepticon leader. However, Shockwave's character occasionally reveals cracks in his emotionless facade. In the UK comics, he experiences moments of vulnerability, such as snapping after repeated defeats and injuries, including being blinded in battle. Despite these moments, his composure typically returns. In one instance, Ravage manages to outmaneuver Shockwave's logic, pulling him back from a mental breakdown in time to save reality from a catastrophic time rift. Shockwave's long tenure in the Marvel Comics solidified his reputation as a relentless antagonist. He outwits and battles both Autobots and Decepticons, and shows no allegiance beyond his own calculated goals. Whether facing Optimus Prime, Megatron, or Galvatron, Shockwave consistently proves himself as a powerful and unyielding force. In contrast, the Sunbow cartoon version of Shockwave reduced him to a minor, subservient role, lacking the depth and independence of his comic counterpart. This portrayal is widely regarded as less compelling. However, subsequent adaptations, including the Transformers animated and Prime series, revived Shockwave's character as a dangerous and intelligent figure. In these iterations, he's portrayed as either a double agent or a brilliant yet ruthless scientist, echoing his Marvel roots. Shockwave's depiction in IDW comics builds on his scientific prowess. Initially introduced in the acclaimed Spotlight Shockwave, he's portrayed as a scientist obsessed with logic. IDW later expands his backstory, revealing him as a former senator who becomes a cold and calculating Decepticon after being lobotomized and stripped of his individuality. This transformation explains his emotionless nature and his methodical approach to warfare and experimentation. In live-action action films, Shockwave appears in Transformers: Dark of the Moon as a secondary antagonist. He wields a massive cannon and commands a monstrous pet called the Driller. Shockwave participates in the Decepticon invasion of Chicago, clashing with Optimus Prime in a climactic battle. Despite his intimidating presence, he is ultimately defeated and killed by Optimus, who uses Shockwave's cannon to secure an Autobot victory. So that was all in this video. Let me know if you thought we missed out on someone, or if you would have liked a replacement. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.